everyone, my name is Clay and welcome to Terminally Nerdy, and today I'm going to talk to you about Fluff, Crunch, what they mean, and kind of give you some examples of systems that use them. So you'll hear people on occasion talk about systems being fluffy or systems being very crunch heavy, and you might not know what they exactly mean. So to break it down, systems that focus on fluff tend to focus on narrative aspects of storytelling and gaming. They tend to be fairly rules light, or sometimes only have one or two rules. They're very, very fluid, and a lot of it is ad hoc and kind of basically just as you go. And they're focused on telling a story, and they're more concerned with the why than the how. A good example of this, for example, is Dread, which is a game with one mechanic for the entire game, and that is anytime you want to do something and your GM thinks that it has a chance of failure, not that it has a chance of failure, you have to pull a block from a Jenga tower. That's it. That's the entire thing. There's no dice. There's no rolling. It's literally you pulling blocks from a Jenga tower. That's an example of a fluffy system or a narrative system. The other end of the spectrum, and it is a kind of a spectrum, is the crunch stuff. These are things that are very, very rules heavy. They're focused on the systems. They're focused on the how do you do something rather than why. For example, it's like they're kind of referred to as simulationist is a good example. GURPS, Shadowrun, the hero system to an extent. Those are all very, very crunchy systems. They have a lot of rules. And for some people, that's what they like. They like to know the how do I do it. So in like Shadowrun, it's not just that you're attacking the guy, it's like where do you hit him, how hard do you hit him, what do those hits affect. You have a lot of dice, you have a lot of rolls, you have a lot of rules for every single solitary thing that you can do. And systems run the gamut between crunch and fluff. I tend to think of them on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being extremely fluffy, Dread would be a 1, to 10 being extremely crunchy. GURPS would be at the 10 mark, because GURPS is insanely complicated. And then everything falls in between. To give you some examples of where I kind of rate things on the fluff versus crunch scale, 5th edition D&D for me is kind of right in the middle. It would be a 5. It has enough rules to help you determine the how you do something, but enough openness that if the DM just needs to do something on the fly, he totally can, and everyone's cool with it. It has a lot of narrative aspects to it, like the bonds and ideals. While they're rules, they're also narrative-based. You know, you're picking how your character, why your character is the way that they are. You're using a rule to enact the fluff. Going towards fluffy, you end up with things like Savage Worlds, which is fairly rules light. Even more is Fate. Powered by the Apocalypse, they all start heading towards the fluffy end. We'll go this way. They're all this way, towards fluff. Crunchier systems would be things like Pathfinder, which has a ton of rules, but still allows a lot of creativity. It's going this way. You know, 3rd edition D&D is this way. You know, like I said, the aforementioned Shadowrun, the hero system. Call of Cthulhu is kind of odd. I'd probably put it this way because it has like 1.5 million fucking skills for just about everything. World of Darkness would be towards the fluffy end. It has character advancement and enough rules to give you options, but it doesn't impede your options. And really, neither side is the best. For example, I know that Dread would not work for me. I like character advancement. I like my characters getting better over time and having a mechanical aspect to it. Dread doesn't allow that. Dungeon World and Fate don't really allow that. Your characters change, but they don't really get better. Like, you don't get +4 to +5, you just start changing the way your characters function. To be honest, about as fluffy as I want to get is Savage Worlds, Open Legend, or World of Darkness, where it's a lot more open, there's a lot more options for a character, a lot more narrative freedom, but you still have character advancement. You still have options for making your character visibly better at what they're doing. There is literal mechanical growth. On the other side, I am not a crunch guy at all. Shadowrun, which I own, Shadowrun 5e somewhere over here. Here it is. Look at this book. Look at this. Do you want to know how crunchy Shadowrun is? When I was trying to learn how to do it, and I had to teach my players how to make a character, the entire echoing sentiment over and over and over again on the internet, anywhere I asked for tips, was to download an app called Chummer to make a character. Because making a character using the rules in the book by hand is insane. To be honest, the first time we tried it, I sat down with my group, we sat down starting to make characters. 4 hours later, we were still not done. Because there's just so much to it. GURPS and riffs, those things are all at that end. They are way too much rules for me. About as crunchy as I want to get would probably be Pathfinder and 3.5. That's about as far to the crunch end as I want to get. Because they still allow a lot of narrative freedom, and I don't have to sit there trying to memorize like rules for hitting specific body parts and how those body parts affect the rest of you. And no, I don't need that level of crunch. I'm very much a middle of the road kind of guy. 5th Ed is great for me. I absolutely adore it. So when you're sitting down to look at a system, you need to kind of figure out, what do I like and what do I don't like? Do I need heavy simulationist rules? Do I want to know exactly what happens if I hit a tank on the left side versus the right side? That would be towards the crunch end. Or are you more a guy like, I don't really care about all these rules, I just want to tell a good story? Then you're going to be on the fluffy end. You might look at things like Powered by the Apocalypse, Fate, things like Dread. There's 10 Candles, Torchbearer. There's a bunch of really, really big narrative ones lately on this end. Open Legend, World of Darkness, etc. So when you're trying to figure out where you want to fit on that scale, just start looking. People will describe them as either simulationist or narrative, or fluffy or crunchy. And now that you know what those terms mean, you can kind of figure out where everything is. Hopefully you can find a system that fits you. All the systems are good, even if I don't like Shadowrun personally because it's just too much for me. That doesn't mean it's a bad system, it's just not for me. Hopefully this has helped some guys, hope some of you guys understand these terminology, and kind of get where you're going. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I can probably point you out to some system. I do a lot of research on systems because I'm always looking for interesting new ideas. And because of that, I tend to end up with a bunch of knowledge about random nonsense. So if you're looking for a particular system that fits a particular build, please leave a comment below and I'll see if I can find one for you. As always, if you like what I'm doing, hit that like button. If you don't like what I'm doing, feel free to hit the dislike button and tell me why. Feel free to subscribe if you want more videos, reviews, nonsense, and other shenanigans. Feel free to support me on Patreon if you so desire. And as always, thanks for watching, and remember, stay nerdy!